Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Kevin. Welcome to OneClass. Today I'm going to be teaching a little bit of economics, a little bit about me. I hold a bachelor's in economics as well as a master's, and I also work as an economist. Today I'm just going to walk you through some common problems in economics, both either high school or college level. Probably 5 questions over the next half hour, so I might run a little long, might run a little short, not sure. Basically what I'm going to do is just verify solutions and provide the background knowledge needed for you to solve these problems. So looking at our first problem here, it reads, which of the following characterizes monopolistic competition? Possible answers are A, many interdependent firms sell a homogeneous product. B, a few firms produce a particular type of product. C, many firms produce a particular type of product, but each maintains some independent control over its own price. And D, few firms produce all of the market supply of a good. As our junior tutor has written here, the correct answer is C. Many firms produce a particular type of product, but each maintains some independent control over its own price. Examples of monopolistic competition are things like hairdressers and restaurants. So what our junior tutor has written here is that monopolistic competition is a market structure that consists of many sellers selling somewhat different products from the competitors, but possess some market power as far as the price of their products is concerned. Just give me a second here. I'm going to make sure my mic is working. It looks like it is. Sorry, I'll start that over. Monopolistic competition is a market structure that consists of many sellers selling somewhat different products from the competitors, but possess some market power as far as the price of their products is concerned. It is through product differentiation that a firm under monopolistic competition exercises partial control over price. Partial control over price leads to partial monopoly power, and product differentiation implies rival firms sell products which are not perfect substitutes, but are close substitutes to each other. Difference in design, color, or even packaging in the product attracts buyers to buy a particular product, even at a relatively higher price. Partial control over price exists, but full control over price is ruled out under monopolistic competition because there are many competitors in the market selling close substitutes. For example, if you're feeling a burger, you may want from McDonald's, which is slightly different than the one from A&W, which is slightly different from the one from Harvey's, so on and so forth. So I'm going to kind of draw out all the characteristics of monopolistic competition. I'm going to show you kind of 2 different graphs to explain it, and run through a couple examples and differences from perfect competition and monopoly. So first, we will go through the characteristics. Writing sucks, you're going to have to bear with me. So call it A. First characteristic is that products are similar, but not identical. Similar, but not identical. And going back to kind of the burger example I had here, McDonald's burger is not all that different from an A&W burger, but they're different enough that the different companies can market them differently and exercise some control over the price. Second characteristic of monopolistic competition is that the firms differentiate their products to capture above market returns. We, of course, don't know the marginal cost of a Big Mac versus whatever Harvey sells. But we can assume that the pricing is made to capture profits above what they would in perfect competition. So differentiate so that we can get above market returns. Third characteristic of monopolistic competition is that there's heavy advertising. This isn't a necessity, but it's just something that's like very common with these kinds of firms. Kind of going back to the restaurant example, they're all trying to get your business for their slightly differentiated product. So you're going to see a lot of ads about why the Big Mac is so good, why the A&W burger is so good, etc. There's also exceptions to this. For example, there's not many ads you're going to see about which hairdresser to go to, even though they're offering slightly differentiated products as well, in that one hairdresser's haircut is different from another hairdresser's. And D, there are many firms. So for example, this is obviously not monopoly, duopoly, and oligopoly, anything of that nature. Anything else to add there? There is free entry and exit. And what this means is that there's no barriers to entry. So if you guys remember in a monopoly, the reason other firms aren't joining the market structure is because there's some barrier to entry, whether it be natural, technological, etc., that is preventing them from doing so. Free entry and exit. I think I'm forgetting, yeah, I am forgetting one. Last one is that they make normal profits in the long run. Profits I'm going to denote with the symbol pi. So they can make normal profits, or they do make, sorry, normal profits in the long run, but they can make supernormal profits in the short run. An example of this might be McDonald's does its dollar drink days, and all of a sudden I'm buying all my coffee from there. If the revenue goes up by more than it was before, the price going down because more people are buying, this could lead to sort of supernormal profits. I can't really shrink that or anything, so I'm going to give you guys a second to take a picture if you'd like. Then after that, I'm going to erase it to get to the graphs. 3, 2, 1. So first, I'm going to draw the short run for us. As always, we've got quantity on the x-axis and price on the y-axis. And basically, what we need to remember for the short run is that it is exactly the same as a monopoly. So this is when they're making supernormal profits. That does spell monopoly, believe it or not. So we've got marginal revenue coming down. A lower point, then we have demand coming down. And demand is going to equal your average revenue in this situation. Let me check to just make sure I draw this right. Marginal cost dips, then comes up. And average cost starts below demand, like so. So if we remember, a monopolist produces where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. Draw that down, call that Q star. And next we move up to the point where we hit the demand curve. And the point where it crosses the average cost curve. Basically, this is the markup here in price. Call that M. Call this P1. and P2. And basically, their supernormal profits are characterized by this box here. It's about to get cramped. So those are supernormal profits right in this box here. Once again, monopolist produces where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost, draw it up to the demand curve and draw it over. And then where this line crosses the average cost curve, the difference there, aka the markup, is going to be our supernormal profits in the short run. Again, I'll give you guys a second to take a picture of that, and then I'll move on to drawing the long run. I don't think I have anything else to add to this one. All right, moving on in 3, 2, 1. All right, I've got the long run. So not all that different. They're almost the same graph. But again, so quantity on the x-axis, price on the y-axis, our marginal revenue curve. That's our demand or actual revenue curve. Draw our marginal cost again. First slopes down, then it slopes up. And the difference here is that the AC is going to meet the demand curve. So again, they're going to produce where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. Sorry, I'm probably going to have to redraw this AEC curve. It was poorly drawn. And the marginal revenue equals marginal cost. You're going to draw up, and the AC curve should intersect with the demand curve right where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. So here we've got our Q star, and here we've got our P star. I'm trying to think of what else to add to this. The long run, basically supernormal profits encourages new firms to enter. This reduces demand for existing firms and leads to normal profits. So if we remember the short run image that I just erased, some firms in the short run can make supernormal profits. This is going to incentivize new firms to enter, and then this is going to reduce the demand for the existing firms and bring them back to normal profits, which is why our long run situation has normal profits. So long run, I'm going to write supernormal profits incentivizes new firms. Demand then falls for existing firms. And as a result, these firms return to normal profit levels. Examples, as I said, are like restaurants, hairdressers, things of that nature. I might add just one last thing here. Gonna erase this and use I can take a picture if you need. Okay. I'm gonna erase this in 3, 2, 1. So it's different from a monopoly. because there are no barriers to entry in this. Remember, the short run in this situation is identical to that of monopoly, but the difference is that they return to normal profits in the long run. So the difference from monopoly is that there's free entry and exit, or no barriers to entry. Free entry and exit. And it's going to be different from perfect competition because they're not price takers. They do have a little bit of power to exercise price control in the market. Different from perfect competition. That one's extra hideous because they are not price takers. And this is because the products are differentiated. In a perfect competition, everybody's producing identical products. As a result, they really have no influence over the price, where in this case, we've got slightly differentiated products. Another good example might be you go for a burger at the Works, you're probably going to pay more than if you go for one at like Burger King or some other terrible restaurant. That's all I have on monopolistic competition. So I'm going to say excellent analysis. The answer is correct. And we can move on to the next question here. This is question 2. And it reads, when conducting an open market sale, the Fed, 1, the Fed sells government bonds and in doing so increases the money supply. 2, the Fed sells government bonds and in doing so decreases the money supply. 3, the Fed buys government bonds and in doing so increases the money supply. Or 4, the Fed buys government bonds and in doing so decreases the money supply. And our tutor's correct. The correct answer here is 2, sells government bonds and in doing so decreases the money supply. And what they've written is that open market operations involve the sale and purchase of U.S. Treasury securities by the monetary authority of the economy. What the Fed does in the United States is the equivalent to what the Bank of Canada does here in Canada. Carrying on, I said that open market operations involve the sale and purchase of U.S. Treasury securities by the monetary authority of the economy. They're used as a vital instrument of the monetary policy to change the money supply and deal with short-run economic fluctuations. So open market sales are carried out by the Fed when the economy is undergoing inflationary pressure to prevent the economy from overheating. Overheating in this case means inflation happening at a faster rate than we would like. They try to keep it right around 2%. The sale of government bonds and securities absorbs the money supply from the market by shrinking the credit creation ability of commercial banks. As the amount of money in the market decreases, the spending capacity of consumers contracts, leading to a reduction in the aggregate demand. The reduced aggregate demand brings the price level down. So I think that's an excellent answer, and I think what they said at the end there is probably the most important bit of all of this. So as the money supply shrinks, consumer spending is also going to shrink. Just a hideous error, really. Consumer spending is also going to shrink, and as a result, aggregate demand is going to shrink as well. And lastly, the reduced amount of aggregate demand is going to bring the price down. And I'm going to say correct answer and excellent explanation. Close. Correct answer and excellent explanation. With that, we can move on to 3. Question 3 here. And question 3 reads as follows. Oh, there's a bunch in this. I didn't realize that. I can actually probably go through a bit of these. A couple of these at least. I didn't prepare anything for them, but we'll see how much I remember from first year. So fiscal policy attempts to affect the level of overall spending in the economy by changes in A, the interest rate, B, the money supply, C, banking regulations, or D, taxes and spending. I believe the correct answer here is taxes and spending, if my memory serves me correctly. Yeah, and that's what our junior tutor said as well. I think it's probably best to supply you guys with some actual concrete definitions to work off. So, fiscal policy essentially means tax policy. That's hideous. I'm going to start over. Longer form of that is going to say that fiscal policy is the means by which a government adjusts its spending levels and tax rates to moderate influence a nation's economy. It's a sister strategy to monetary policy through which a central bank influences a nation's money supply. So these are basically the two main ways that a central bank will influence economy, either through fiscal policy, raising taxes, lowering taxes, taxing specific items, things of that nature, or monetary policy, which is trying to shrink or grow the money supply. So, just to go over this question one more time, fiscal policy attempts to affect the level of overspending in the economy by changes in taxes and spending. Again, fiscal is essentially synonymous with tax. Let me look through here and see which of these interest me a little bit. Maybe question 4 here. When economists measure economic growth, they often use A, the inflation rate, B, the unemployment rate, C, nominal GDP, or D, real GDP. The answer here is going to be real GDP. For those of you that don't know, nominal is current prices. You go to the store, you see something for $2.99. The nominal price of that is $2.99. What's going on there? Whereas real GDP, real prices, etc., are adjusted for inflation. So without going into too much detail, to calculate real GDP, you're going to pick some base here that you're going to chain the prices to. And after accounting for inflation, you essentially get the real value of what you're looking for. So adjusted for inflation. Answer A, the inflation rate. The inflation rate is important. We try to keep it around 2%, both to avoid hyperinflation and also to avoid stagnation. Potentially answer B, the unemployment rate. The unemployment rate is obviously important. It's a great example of that right now is COVID, where obviously we're hit with the pandemic, the unemployment rate spiked, so the government introduced some stimulus in order to basically inject some money into the economy and avoid a recession, or at least delay a recession. But to measure economic growth, the kind of gold standard worldwide is real GDP. Let me just go check that it's got the same answer down here for real GDP. Excellent. What else do we have here? Erase this quickly in the meantime. Maybe number 8, the alteration between recessions and expansions is known as the A, unemployment rate, B, long-run economic growth, C, business cycle, or D, macroeconomy, pardon me. So obviously what the employment rate is the amount of unemployed, the amount of people in the workforce that are unable to find work. Long-run economic growth would point to increasing GDP over a long time horizon. The macroeconomy is basically what you will hear referred to as the economy in the media and whatnot. So like that's often getting referred to the job market or the housing market or things of that nature that leaves C, the business cycle, which is the alteration between recessions and expansions. Basically, over the long run, there will typically be economic growth, but that doesn't come in a linear straight line like this. Instead, there's going to be recessions, say 2008 or so, economy recovers, there's going to be expansions, people are feeling confident, people are spending money, they feel that their jobs are secured, and then perhaps some event happens, in this case, a pandemic. 10 years ago, we were talking more about the financial crisis, of course. There was a Great Depression in the late 1920s, and then a recession will take place, etc. Then we may have another expansion. So the kind of line of best fit over time will hopefully, ideally, and this is the case in Canada, the economy is growing. However, it's not going to be in a straight linear line. There's going to be a cycle to it, and that's what we refer to as the business cycle. Maybe answer one or two more from here before I move on. Number 13, just to kind of, this is a bit of an obvious one, but just to kind of go with what I was just speaking of course, if I draw a business cycle here, that's the point of a business cycle where real GDP stops rising and begins falling. So obviously up to here, we're rising. There we begin falling. This is the peak of a business cycle. Then we fall. We can hit the trough right here and then begin rising again. Of course, this should be on a Cartesian plane, and we're measuring like real GDP here. We should have drawn this the first time, sorry about that. We're measuring real GDP in the y-axis and time on the x-axis. And this, like, you know, this could be 08 here, maybe this is 2016 or 17, and now we've hit 2020 and we're beginning to recess again. Um, 15, monetary policy involves A, changes in government spending, B, changes in government tax receipts, C, changes in the quantity of money, and D, changes in tax rates. I'm just going to go over this one because we went over fiscal policy earlier. I'm going to give you guys an exact definition to work off of here. But it effectively refers to changes in the money supply. So it refers to the actions that are taken by a nation's central bank to control money supply and achieve sustainable economic growth. So that right there should tell you that the answer will be C, changes in the quantity of money. They can do this by selling or buying bonds. Another example would be the stimulus, aka the CERB or the CESB, that we all would have received in some capacity over the course of the summer. So I'm going to go down here, say, did not answer all questions. The questions that were answered were correct. Good job. Moving on, I think I have two more questions here, maybe three. So this would be number 4, I believe. And this question reads as follows. Other things being equal, the law of demand suggests that as A, demand for a commodity increased when the price of commodity increases. B, demand for a commodity increases when the price of commodity decreases. C, demand increases due to an increase in consumer income. And D, when consumer expectations increase, it will lead to a decrease in demand. Our junior tutor has written that the answer is B, demand for a commodity increases when the price of a commodity decreases. And this is the correct answer. So the law of demand suggests that other things remaining the same, demand for a commodity are inversely related to the changes in price. The other determinants of demand, like the price of related goods, the income of the consumer, tastes and preferences of the consumer, and consumer expectations, do not contribute to the law of demand, which essentially describes the relationship between the price and demand of a commodity. Hence, when the price of any commodity decreases in the market, it will lead to an increase in quantity demanded by the consumer. So basically, we're going to write that if price is going to go up, people are going to demand less. Similarly, if the price falls, people are going to demand more. Maybe going back to like a burger from Works. Yeah, I think it's like maybe like $15 or something. I don't know. But say it's now $30 to get a burger at Works. A lot of people are going to say, no, I'll probably go somewhere else, get a different burger. Similarly, if the price were to fall to, like $5 or so, you'd expect Works to have an uptick in business. I'll actually graph that quickly still. So if we were to draw our typical graph here, we've got quantity on the x-axis and price on the y-axis. And here we've got our supply and demand. Of course, this is the equilibrium point. That's our Q star. And this is going to be our P star. Now, if we're at this point here, and we've got the price very, very high, P, I'll call it PH, H for high, they're going to make, every unit they do sell, the firm is going to make a lot of money on it because they're charging this difference in price, right? However, they're only going to sell this many units. Similarly, if they have a really low price, like this, call that P low, they're going to sell a whole lot of units, right? However, the units aren't worth that much. They're not making that much money off of it. Let's call this Q. You get the gist of it. This thing drives me nuts. We'll run through one more question here before I call it a night. So I'm going to say, perfect, write up the answer. Solution's correct. Question 5 here. Which statements correctly explain price floors and price ceilings? Check all that apply. Possible answers are A, ineffective price floors tend to be too high. Pardon me. B, ineffective price ceilings tend to be too low. C, that price floors help producers by raising prices. D, that price ceilings help consumers by lowering prices. E, that effective price floors are set above equilibrium. Or F, that effective price ceilings are set below equilibrium. And what our junior tutor has written here is that in economics, for specific goods and services, governments will apply price controls that show the minimum and maximum prices of that particular good and service. So the maximum price that a producer of particular goods or service legally charged from the consumers is known as a price ceiling, and the minimum price that a producer of a particular good or service can legally charge from the consumers is known as the price floor. The effective price ceiling is below the equilibrium level of the market, and the effective price floor is above the equilibrium level of the market. So we can say that the options C, D, E, and F are the correct options. So C being that price floors help producers by raising prices. D, that price ceilings help consumers by lowering prices. E, that effective price floors are set above the equilibrium. And F, that effective price ceilings are set below the equilibrium. I'll take the time to draw this out for you, I guess. So we'll just draw our kind of typical supply and demand graph as we've been doing. Q on the x-axis, P on the y-axis. Supply curve slopes up, and the demand curve slopes down. And this is what would be our equilibrium price level, Q star, and P star. So first I'm going to draw a price floor. So price floor is going to look something like this. We'll call it floor. And you can kind of see right away why it needs to be set above equilibrium for it to be effective. So we'll call this PF. And when the price is set here, this means that the price is higher, so people are going to demand less, but also that there's going to be more supply. However, if we were to set the price floor down here, it wouldn't matter because all it means is that the firm needs to charge a price above this line, but they were already doing that because they would have produced at equilibrium. So this is why you can see that price floors are ineffective when priced below equilibrium. So the effect of a price floor, this is going to be our quantity supplied, which is above the equilibrium quantity. And this is going to be our quantity demanded, which is below the equilibrium quantity. So the difference, this area here is going to be a surplus. Firms are producing more than is demanded by consumers in this market. I don't think I have anything else to add with that. I'll draw a price ceiling for you now, just to compare to. And it basically works exactly the same, but opposite. So again, we'll draw our typical supply and demand. Supply slopes up, demand slopes down. Point where they meet is going to be the equilibrium. So we'll call that Q star. Call this P star. And this time we've got a price ceiling. So we'll draw that down here, ceiling. So similar but opposite to the price floor. If the price ceiling is set below the equilibrium point, that means that the highest price they can charge is at the ceiling. We'll call this PC for ceiling. And if they were to set this price ceiling way up here, then it wouldn't make a difference because our firms would still produce and consumers would still demand the equilibrium point there. The difference between a price floor and a price ceiling is that this time, where the price meets the supply curve, we have our quantity supplied. Where the price meets the demand curve, we've got our quantity demanded. This time, instead of a surplus, we've got a shortage. So because the price is low, people want more than is in the marketplace, more that is being produced. And so there's a shortage. I'll give you guys a second to take a picture of this as well. Maybe I can, I don't know if that helps. Well, I guess I'm done actually, so I don't need to delete it. But I'm going to say, excellent answer. That is correct. Maybe I'll actually just quickly go back through. So price floors help producers by raising prices. So they now get a higher price per unit sold. Price ceilings help consumers by lowering prices. So consumers would have been paying P star, but they're instead paying PC. Effective price floors are set above the equilibrium. We went over that. The floor has to be above the equilibrium. If it's below, it's irrelevant. And that effective price ceilings are set below the equilibrium because if it's above it, it's irrelevant. They'll just produce the equilibrium. So we'll say, excellent answer, that is correct. And that's all the questions I have for us today. If you enjoyed today's Q&A and you'd like to be notified when we do the next one, there's a subscribe button and a notification bell below. If you want to submit your own questions, you can visit the links in the description. Remember to leave a like, a comment, and share this video with your friends. This has been Kevin from OneClass.